There is a test happening inside you right now. A test so quiet, so invisible, that you might not even know you're taking it. No one prepared you for this examination. There were no study guides, no teachers to turn to, no clear moment when someone sat you down and said, "This is it. This is the trial that will determine who you truly become." Yet here you are, possibly years into the most rigorous assessment your consciousness will ever endure, unaware that every difficult moment, every silent struggle, every night you barely survived was actually reshaping the very foundation of your being. Carl Jung spent his lifetime studying these hidden transformations, these invisible initiations that certain souls pass through. He discovered something remarkable. Some people undergo what he called a second psychological birth, a complete reorganization of consciousness that happens not despite their pain, but because of how they move through it. This transformation leaves no visible scars, no certificates of completion, no external proof that anything changed at all. Yet everything has changed. The question that haunts us then becomes this: have you already passed this test without knowing it? Is the evidence written in your energy, in the way you now move through the world, in that quality others sense in you but cannot quite name? Today we explore the 7 signs that you have completed your soul's most demanding examination. These are not achievements to celebrate with fanfare. They are quiet recognitions, subtle shifts that only those who have walked this path will truly understand. If you recognize yourself in these signs, know that you have been fundamentally altered by your encounter with your deepest truth. The first sign reveals itself in something most people flee from: being alone. But for you, something profound has shifted. Where once aloneness felt like abandonment, like evidence of your unworthiness, it has transformed into something entirely different: a sanctuary, a space where you finally breathe. Jung wrote extensively about what he called the abandonment complex, that deep psychological wound that drives us to scatter our energy, desperately seeking approval and connection from anyone who might fill the void inside us. When this complex no longer controls your choices, when that frantic need for external validation begins to quiet, you have crossed an invisible threshold. Your energy stops dispersing itself outward in every direction. Instead, it begins to gather, to concentrate, to settle into a stillness that feels almost foreign at first. This is not the stillness of depression or withdrawal. This is the quietude that emerges when you no longer need to convince anyone of your worth, including yourself. You discover something unexpected: your best insights, your clearest moments of understanding. They don't come from constant interaction with others. They arise from communion with the deeper parts of yourself that only emerge when the external world grows silent. This solitude becomes creative rather than destructive, generative rather than isolating. There's a paradox here that Jung identified as essential. The more comfortable you become with your own company, the more attractive you become to those seeking real connection. Your nervous system has recalibrated entirely. You've developed what Jung called an appetite for the liminal spaces, those threshold moments where one version of yourself dissolves and another emerges. The unknown no longer triggers that automatic anxiety. Instead, you approach mystery with curiosity, even hunger. The second sign manifests in your relationship with what Jung termed the shadow. Those aspects of yourself you once rejected, denied, or buried deep where no one, including yourself, could see them. Shadow integration is perhaps the most crucial and most terrifying aspect of psychological maturity. Yet you have done something remarkable. You have stopped running from your own darkness. You've developed a brutal honesty with yourself about your capacity for manipulation, your hunger for power, your ability to wound others when you feel threatened. Rather than terrifying you into shame, this self-knowledge has become a source of genuine strength. You recognize these impulses not as character flaws to be eliminated, but as primal energies to be understood and channeled consciously. Your anger has undergone a complete transformation. It no longer explodes destructively or festers in bitter repression. Instead, it has become what might be called a sacred fire. It burns now only what needs to be destroyed in your life. Relationships that diminish you, patterns that keep you small, agreements you made before you understood your own worth. This anger serves your evolution rather than sabotaging it. There is an energetic integrity that others sense in you now, even when you remain silent. People feel your authenticity because you have made peace with your own contradictions. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to resolve every paradox within you. Instead, you've learned to hold them consciously, allowing them to create the dynamic tension Jung identified as essential for real psychological growth. The way you process emotional intensity has fundamentally shifted. Where once overwhelming feelings could destabilize you for days or weeks, you now have a container strong enough to hold the full spectrum of human experience. Your emotional range has actually expanded, but your relationship to these feelings has transformed from unconscious possession into conscious partnership. The third sign emerges as a kind of immunity, an ability to see through what Jung called projection. Projection is the unconscious process by which people deposit their unprocessed psychological material onto others, making you responsible for emotions, reactions, or insights that actually belong to them. You've developed an almost scientific ability to observe this happening in real time, not with anger or a sense of superiority, but with the detached interest of a researcher studying natural phenomena. Drama that once pulled you in like a gravitational force now feels completely foreign to your system. You watch triangulations, manipulations, and emotional games unfold around you, but they no longer hook you. Your compassion has evolved from the codependent variety that sacrifices itself trying to rescue others into what Jung described as mature compassion, the kind that offers presence without losing itself in another's suffering. This relates directly to what he termed the transcendent function, the psychological capacity to position yourself above dualistic conflicts and perceive the larger patterns at work. When others bring you their crisis, you no longer experience that automatic anxiety that once made their emergencies your emergencies. Instead, there's a serene recognition of the limits of your responsibility and the wisdom of allowing others to meet their own challenges. You find yourself naturally stepping back from situations where your energy is being used to maintain someone else's emotional equilibrium. People may interpret your new boundaries as coldness, but you recognize them as the protection of something sacred within yourself. This stepping back is not cruelty, but clarity, about the difference between supporting someone's growth and enabling their avoidance of necessary lessons. The fourth sign reveals itself in your intuitive capacity, which blossoms into a fully activated function of consciousness. Where once you relied almost entirely on logical analysis, you now consult an inner knowing that connects you to information far beyond the reach of rational thought. Synchronicities begin flowing through your life with increasing frequency. Meaningful coincidences that create a sense that events are aligning according to an intelligence far greater than your conscious planning. Jung spent years studying this phenomenon, recognizing it as evidence of what he called the collective unconscious at work in individual lives. You've learned to distinguish between the urgent demands of your wounded ego and the quiet guidance of what Jung called the self, that archetype of wholeness that emerges when individuation deepens. Your ability to read the invisible layers of people and situations expands exponentially. You perceive motivations, patterns, and potential outcomes that remain completely hidden to others, not through cynicism, but through a refined sensitivity to the energetic information flowing beneath surface appearances. Decision-making no longer requires extensive pros and cons lists or endless deliberation. Instead, you've developed a direct line to your own inner counsel, an ancestral wisdom that has access to knowledge accumulated not just through your personal experience, but through the depths of the collective unconscious itself. A quality of listening develops within you that goes far beyond simply hearing words. You attune to the spaces between sentences, the emotions hiding beneath explanations, the soul speaking through the persona. This listening is not analysis, but reception. Not judgment, but a witnessing of the full spectrum of human complexity. The fifth sign manifests in your embrace of the natural, cyclical nature of existence. You have integrated the archetype of death and rebirth so completely that you no longer fear those periods when your life seems to dissolve, when everything you built appears to crumble, when the ground beneath you turns to water. These times of apparent ending have become familiar preludes to expansion and renewal. Your relationship with uncertainty transforms from desperate avoidance into active engagement. Where once you needed guaranteed outcomes before you could move forward, you now recognize that the most meaningful growth occurs precisely in the space between decision and result. In the willingness to act from inner alignment without knowing how things will turn out. An energetic economy begins working within you, naturally protecting your vital resources. Your energy is no longer scattered across dozens of draining commitments made from guilt, obligation, or the need to prove yourself. Instead, you learn to invest your life force strategically, like a wise gardener who understands that not every seed deserves the same soil. You understand deeply that growth moves in spirals, not straight lines. That you will revisit the same themes at deeper levels throughout your life. This brings tremendous patience with your own process, a gentleness with yourself that would have seemed impossible during your darker times. Your creativity undergoes a fundamental shift from external achievement to internal expression. You create not to prove your worth or impress others, but because creation has become a form of communion with the life force moving through you. The sixth sign emerges in your relationship with external validation. Jung's contemporary Alfred Adler wrote extensively about the inferiority complex, those wounds that drive us to constantly compare ourselves and prove our worth. This complex dissolves within you so completely that the impulse to measure yourself against external standards feels foreign, almost absurd. You develop what Jung called inner authority, a psychological structure that validates your experiences independently of social consensus. Your self-worth no longer fluctuates wildly with the changing tides of opinion, approval, or criticism. Criticism and praise register with similar neutrality, processed as information rather than verdicts on your fundamental worth as a human being. This shift frees enormous energy that was previously consumed in managing your image, crafting your persona, trying to control how others perceive you. Your authenticity becomes non-negotiable. You naturally choose rejection for who you truly are over acceptance for a performance of who you think you should be. The way you inhabit your physical body shifts noticeably. A groundedness emerges that comes from genuine self-possession. You move through space as someone who belongs to themselves first. Others sense this and respond to it, though they may not understand what they're sensing. The seventh and final sign manifests as a refined discrimination about how you invest your energy. Jung believed the process of individuation culminates in what can be called energetic sovereignty, the ability to protect your essence without aggression, simply through conscious choice about where you direct your attention and presence. Your presence becomes more selective, more precious. You no longer distribute yourself indiscriminately to anyone who asks or demands. This is not elitism or arrogance, but wisdom about the sacred nature of your own life force. A natural authority emanates from you now, not power over others, but power over yourself, which Jung identified as the hallmark of true psychological maturity. The guilt that once accompanied setting limits dissolves almost completely. You protect your energy with the naturalness of protecting any precious resource. You've learned to recognize those individuals, projects, and relationships that drain your vitality without offering anything of value in return. Your relationship with suffering itself undergoes a fundamental transformation. Where once pain was something to be avoided at all costs, it becomes a teacher whose lessons you receive with gratitude. This doesn't mean you seek suffering, but that you extract wisdom from unavoidable challenges, metabolizing difficulty in a way that transforms poison into medicine. A stillness follows you now. Not an absence of movement, but a presence of deep centeredness. This stillness attracts those who are searching for something they cannot name. You become a living example of what Jung called the individuated soul. Your relationship with hope matures from wishful thinking into an active faith in the life process itself. You no longer hope for specific outcomes, but develop trust in your own capacity to meet whatever emerges. This second psychological birth marks not just recovery, but a fundamental reorganization of consciousness. You become psychologically independent of your early programming. There is a sense of completion that has nothing to do with external achievements and everything to do with an internal reconciliation. You no longer need to recover from your past because you have learned to create from your present moment. The person you thought you should become is revealed as a limitation compared to the unique being you already are. Your journey continues, but a crucial phase is completed. You have passed through the soul's most demanding examination, emerging not unscathed, but integrated. Not unchanged, but more essentially yourself. If you recognize yourself in these signs, know that you have passed through an initiation that most will never understand. Your transformation serves not only your own evolution, but creates a template of possibility for others. The test has revealed your true nature. Your pain became your teacher, your wounds became your wisdom, and your journey of conscious evolution has only just begun.